Iowa, it will cost $193 million to implement Common Core standards. Didn't make the numbers up, they came from the Pioneer Institute. Let's look at the $193 million is the Common Core cost. The state did pick up a few bucks from the Teacher Quality Partnership Program. There were 5 competitions after Race to the Top. So they got $9 million there. 193 minus 9 is $184 million. That will be the net cost for the state of Iowa to implement Common Core standards over the first 7-year period. Let's look at some of the major components making up that $193 million. You've got testing at $15 million. Actually, testing is the small component there. Professional development. You have to train the teachers, don't you, when you install a new system? $69 million. Textbooks, $29 million. And technology, that's the biggie. $80 million for technology. You have to understand that Common Core standards absolutely require online testing. More than just an occasional test. The textbook materials, I mean, textbooks are kind of being pushed out. The new buzzwords that the folks use are, instructional materials, IMs, because so much of this stuff will be online. So they're very, very heavy computer requirements in this Common Core. And we can barely handle our schools now, and yet you put this additional burden on, both financially and trying to maintain all these computers and the bandwidth for Iowa. I mean, it's kind of horrendous. So there are some county costs also, or some school districts, ranging from $3 million for some of the, I looked at the 10 largest school districts, and like West Des Moines, $3 million, Council Bluffs, $3 million, ranging up to Des Moines Independent, $12 million bucks, just for that one school district to implement Common Core standards. So it is a very expensive thing. I think on a cost basis alone, it would be enough to suggest that maybe Common Core standards is not a good option. I'd like to switch gears here for a minute, if it's okay. I'm going to look at Common Core English standards. Let's look at a couple of facts here. If Iowa actually had good English standards, it would show up in the test scores. Iowa was ranked number 21 on the NAEP grade 4 reading and number 17 on the ACT exam, the one that just came out. So if Iowa had good standards, independent organizations would say so. Fordham, in their report, said that the Iowa standards for 2010, a grade of F. I hear so much about how great these Iowa core standards are. Well, independent source said that they're a grade of F, so that doesn't exactly, it's not a big compliment. How about the quality of these Common Core standards? Dr. Sandra Stotsky was on the validation committee. She's the foremost expert in the country on English language arts and reading. She goes way back on these education standards. She was on the Common Core validation committee. Those standards were so deficient, so poor, she refused to validate the standards. She was a key player in that in the validation, but the standards were no good. Comments about Dr. Stotsky, and she talks about the changes that are being made in the Common Core. They got this goofy notion about 50% literary text and 50% informational text. When you do that, you cut out the reading of the literary classics. Well, I'm an engineer. What's the big deal with literary classics? Why would we care about that? What happens to your mind when you're looking at literary classics? You have to diagnose the plot and the sequence and all kinds of things, and that develops critical thinking skills. Without the study of the classics, you don't develop analytical, critical thinking skills. Do we want to crank out a whole generation of students that can't think critically? I don't think so. Some other things, college ready. They splash these terms all over the map. College ready, college ready. You hear it time and time again. They are not college ready because they actually studied it, and it doesn't prepare you for college because you've lost these critical thinking skills. Some of the ugly stuff is starting to come out now about these Common Core standards when you look at some of the books. Appendix B of the Common Core standards. I just looked at it a couple of days ago. These books are still listed there. They are plain pornographic. I'm not going to quote them here. It would just, your blood would boil. But take my word for it. Or if you don't take my word for it, please look these books up. Books such as The Bluest Eye, The Time of the Butterflies, Dreaming in Cuban, Playing Porn, in a class in Arizona, they insisted on reading the book out loud to the students. You know, I think it's just disgusting. Also, there were no experts in K through 3 childhood development. They didn't even include any teachers on these committees. And so it's just a bunch of folks getting together and planning this stuff. The result is there was actually a group of people. They wrote 4 reasons why the Common Core standards were unacceptable, mainly because they do not recognize developmentally appropriate materials. You're asking little tiny kindergartners, first and second, third graders to do things their mind is simply not capable of doing. The horror stories are just, they're horrific. Children are crying all the time. They're depressed. They're cutting their wrists. They're eating disorders. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. It's really, really bad. It's what you look at some of the emotional things that we're doing to our schools and our poor little kids when you force them through this stuff. It's just plain ridiculous. It's not very well thought through. So that's enough of mine. Thank you very much.